Welcome to episode 135 of How About Them Huskies. As always, I'm your host, Connor. Joined by Matt and Andrew, and it's been around 3 months, coming up on the 3 month anniversary of our last HBTH episode. A lot of stuff has gone down with the UConn Huskies in and around the program. Usually we take summers off, even though we say once the team's eliminated, we're going to be consistent with these summer uploads. And here we are. It's August 27th. Our last episode was May 30th, May 29th, something like that. But the season's slowly creeping up on us. In just around 7 weeks or so, we'll be having some preseason exhibitions we'll talk about. Then non-conference play, Big East play. All of a sudden, you're right back in March Madness. But I guess we'll just start right there with the schedule because that was officially released within the past week or so. UConn is playing two early season exhibition games, one against Boston College. That one is at Mohegan Sun on October 13th. Then later in October, Michigan State is coming to, and this isn't going to be the first time, probably the only time I say People's Bank Arena in this episode because it's always near the XL Center. So some even the Civic Center at heart. But yeah, Michigan State, that's going to be a really good team coached by Tom Izzo coming in for an exhibition game. So I guess I'll start with my first question to you guys. Which of those two games sticks out to you the most, and what are you most excited to see about the team? Because remember last year we had that game against Rhode Island. I don't think anyone expected Solo Ball to come out and be one of our better players in that game, and that ended up being the case for pretty much the entire season.
I mean, clearly Michigan State's the better team here, but I'm excited for both of them because it's two completely different teams, and it's not like kind of the open scrimmages where they kind of like, I guess, practice while they play. These are like played in front of fans, and they're gonna be like, I guess they're gonna mean something. But I'm excited for both of them because I feel like last year, Rhode Island wasn't really a quality opponent, and we haven't really had many scrimmages in the past year. So I'm excited to actually see a decent team and obviously BC too.
I love exhibition games just because it kind of gives you a chance to, shake the jitters off in the preseason. You don't really have to worry about these games really being meaningful. You don't have to worry about competing with Michigan State in October. It's a good way to kind of get your guys out there and kind of get them in the flow of things, especially as a coach, seeing your guys out there playing for the first time as a unit. And I feel like we are going to see some more surprises this year. You mentioned Solo Ball last year, kind of showing up and being the best player, on that team and just throughout the season. But I'm just hoping that we do pull some good from this. If you remember last year, we had some guys who really showed up in that game that maybe didn't show up for the rest of the year. But nonetheless, it's still exciting to see the guys out there in the preseason.
Yeah, and if you remember from last year, Hurley kind of had a realistic rotation. I remember Ahmad Noel did not play that much in that game, at least early on. He played a bit in the second half, same with Isaiah Abraham. You'd expect that like you play everyone. It's an exhibition game, doesn't really matter. Dan Hurley and the staff don't think that way. There's a pretty good chance the starting lineup we'll see in that game would be the starting lineup that we see on opening night. And that's a question I'll ask you guys a little later in the episode because I feel like there's a glaring last spot to be had between two individual players. But we'll just keep on going down through this non-conference schedule as I pull it up here. UConn starts off, like I said, Boston College and Michigan State. Then the first Division One game for New Haven is opening night. New Haven's coming. We don't know where that game is, but opening night's usually in stores. UMass Lowell is on November 7th, November 10th, Columbia. Then November 15th, up in Boston, a really exciting game against AJ DeBanza and BYU. And then shortly after that, that following, I believe, Tuesday, is Arizona. That one is at People's Bank Arena, if I'm not mistaken. So we go from BYU to Arizona real quick. Am I wrong? I'm wrong.
In stores
I was
because Texas is at
yeah,
XL.
I knew one was the other, 50-50 shot. So Arizona is in stores. Then we have Bryant, which is a little bit of a break because right after Bryant, you have Illinois on Black Friday at the Garden, and then you're going to Kansas. So it's really a tough schedule up to that point. Doesn't get easier. I mean, it does. Second straight year playing East Texas A&M. That's December 5th. Then you go to play Florida in the Jimmy V Classic. That's on December 9th. And then Texas at home December 12th. So obviously, a mouthful there for me. What's one game you're looking forward to the most out of that schedule? And what's maybe one you feel like is going a little under the radar, would you say?
I'm really excited for this BYU game. Just kind of the aura around it. It's a loosely used aura term. But I'm just excited for AJ DeBanza to come in We get to see one of the best players in the country in the preseason, which is, always good. You get to kind of, see what you did against one of the top players, maybe one of the top teams. So, I mean, I'm just generally excited for that one. Not that it's our best game or our most important game, but I'm just excited. It's a Caribbean homecoming, which is, not really being talked about that much. So, I think it's just going to be an exciting. I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think it's a good thing to be a part of.
In the 2024 season, we won the national championship, lost 3 games. 2 of those games, we got beat fair and square. I don't lose sleep over those games, but sometimes I do lose sleep over one game that I think we really should have won. And that's why I'm excited to get revenge at Allen Fieldhouse this year. Because that game still sits with me a little wrong because I really think we should have won that game. I do. I think that we played well enough to win. But it's a tough place to play. It's going to really hit some of these guys. It hit clearly some people in that game, but it's going to hit some of these guys when they get on the floor for tip off that this isn't just an ordinary atmosphere that they're playing in. This is probably the hardest or one of the hardest college basketball atmospheres in the entire country. But I'm really excited for that one to get revenge on them, but I'm also excited to get revenge on Florida.
I do want to also compliment this non-con schedule as a whole. Hurley did a great job this summer of not getting involved in any of the tournaments far away, like he said that he was gonna do, and just put together a real, tough string of opponents. I think it's fantastic. I'd rather play these tough teams to just have cookies all preseason. I also do want to kind of talk quickly about the Florida game. Just kind of a little rematch from last year's round of 32. Just kind of getting a little bit of revenge on Florida. Obviously, a completely different Florida team, not the same team really at all. They lost a lot of guys, but it would be nice at MSG Store South to kind of go down there and get a little bit of revenge on the guys that knocked you out of the tournament last year.
Yeah, I was gonna say that Florida game too. Andrew mentioned the Kansas game's a game he really thought UConn should have won. You could argue that Florida game as well as a game that we had in our hands and ended up losing to the eventual national champions in the Gators. But I'm really excited for these big games, Arizona and Texas at home, because I feel like over the past few years, last year we had Baylor, but we've really been struggling to get these big top home non-conference games. I feel like most of the time, if it's home, oh, it's going to be at MSG, like that Gonzaga game. We couldn't get that one to be at Gamble or People's Bank. We need that one to be MSG. But I'm excited for these two top teams. I don't know will they be ranked, if they'll be ranked, but there's two very good programs. Texas, of course, with Sean Miller now, who was at Xavier the past few seasons, so we have history there. In Arizona, we've played them no few times over the past maybe decade or so. But yeah, I feel like I agree with what you said earlier, Matt. This is a really good schedule. I mean, usually you see like five good tough opponents and then six like cupcake games. We have six really good opponents, and we feel like we shouldn't get down on ourselves potentially if they don't come out of the gate firing and go like 9-2 in non-conference play, because this is not an easy schedule. If you go split 3-3 with these six games and you win all the other ones, of course, you're still sitting at 8-3 going into Big East play, a Big East that we don't know what it's going to look like at this point. But yeah, I feel like it's a very tough schedule. How we react to it is going to be really, really important. I'm interested to see how they react to that BYU game as the first big game because you're playing against the big player in the country, AJ DeBansa. Still, I remember last year I was saying, I don't know who's going to guard him. We're months later. I still don't know what we're going to do with him. He's just that much of a freak. But any last thoughts overall on this non-conference schedule?
I just think it's a gauntlet, honestly. I think it's way better than playing these tournaments. And people are going to have their comments about Hurley ducking those tournaments. There's no need for him. Duke's not in one. I don't think Kentucky is. None of these big blue blood teams are in these giant tournaments anymore. And I agree with Connor. I'd much rather have six and whatever the 5-4 cupcakes are split like this than a bunch of cupcakes, one good premier game, and then a kind of pointless tournament in some tropical island.
And speaking of ducking, if you remember last year, maybe 2 years, I can't remember exactly what year it was, but the Bryant head coach came out and did say that Dan Hurley was kind of ducking him and ducking Bryant because they didn't want that preseason loss. I guess we get to see how that plays out. Now, I don't think Hurley's going to pull any punches in that game, to be honest. I think that's kind of just on there because Hurley It kind of wants to put that narrative to rest. So I'm I'm just excited to see that one for sure.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's funny. And also, New Haven, their first ever D1 game, that could be like a 70-point UConn win, for all we know. One last thought we didn't really mention. First time UConn's playing Illinois since that 30-0 run back in the NCAA tournament 2 years ago. I'm sure Illinois fans are looking for something less than that so they can have that memory as opposed to the 30 to nothing run that they went on in Boston. But what's next to talk about? We had UConn added a couple of players. This was recently, so this isn't like it was in July and we just didn't talk about it. Two new players from Europe, and we're gonna try to get these names correct. There's a guard. This is the easier name, Uros Paunovic. He's Serbian. He looks like a guy that could maybe he's not going to contribute. I'm not even going to try to sugarcoat that at all. He's just a guy like a Rumaglu, Yeren Hassoun from a couple of years ago, just here to help us get better. And then the 7-footer, Rarazan Elizaj, not sure how you pronounce the double R at the beginning of a name, but he's a 7-footer. He's young. I believe he like just turned 18, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he just turned 19, one of the two. But he's 7'1", I believe he's listed as. That's something that could be really interesting. Don't think he's gonna play much, but you could always use depth in the front court.
I think that's what it is. I think it's a depth thing and maybe like a practice player type thing because it's kind of tough with, if you think about it, when Klingon and Sonogo went against each other in practice, it's kind of an unfair and sort of unrealistic matchup. And I feel like it's the same way with Ryba and Reed, is that they're not necessarily making themselves better by going against each other because it's such a big like height difference and weight difference. So maybe he can help Ryba. I don't really know where these moves came from or why they were made, but I mean I'm happy to have them because like you said, depth is always important.
I honestly think as well, you never know what's going to happen throughout a season. And yeah, I mean, like I said, you never know. Ryla could go down with some sort of injury, or same thing with Reed. And if that were to happen, that would entirely throw off your entire game plan. I think it's a good thing just to kind of have somebody there, a big body there, just in case you need to run a specific game plan or specific sets. You need that size. The Boston Celtics won the NBA championship 2 years ago now with Luke Cornett playing valuable minutes because he could kind of slot right into that Porzingis position and make something happen. You didn't have to worry about Al Horford going out there and not making up that size. I think this might be kind of the same thing. They probably won't contribute much throughout the year, but also like you said, they will contribute in practice. This is like they aren't here for no reason, essentially, and you can't really overlook these guys.
Yeah, I think with this year's team, you have the starting five. You have five guys that are definitely going to get some minutes off the bench. I'm not going to name names, so I don't know who we're going to have as official starters. Then you have, remember, roster expanded to 15 this season with the whole NCAA house settlement thing. Rosters moved from 13 to 15, a bunch of other stuff that went on with that settlement as well. But you really have five players, one backup in quotes at each position to run like a practice. Against you have Alec Melender, who's 6'1". He can kind of be a point guard. You have Jacob Ross, and then this new guy, Euros, who can kind of play on the wing. Dwayne Karoma is really a true like four. He's 6'8", muscular. And then you have this Rirazan. He can run the five. So you have pretty much a whole practice squad of guys that aren't going to see many minutes in the game. There's not many teams in the country that have a pretty much 1 through 5 practice squad. And they don't have to be guys that can come in and make an impact. Maybe they aren't, but I'm just really excited for their addition because it's going to make our guys better. Like you mentioned, Ryba and Reed, they're going to get better having the guy bigger than both of them. I think technically Rirazan is taller than Ryba, so that's going to be a really interesting matchup to see in practice. And let's just segue right into that whole lineup discussion because I feel like I have an answer and it might have changed from the last time we talked, but I want to hear what you guys have to think because our starting lineup, it's pretty safe to say four guys. Silas Damari running the point guard, solo ball, sliding next to him at the two. Then you have Caravan and Terrace Reed. That last spot could either go to Jalen Stewart or Braylon Mullins. I want to hear what you guys have to say about that last spot before I give my take.
I think from what we've seen from Dan Harley over the past few years with this influx of talent, is that he's going to start the experience unless you are a world beater, five-star lottery pick freshman. And I think that Mullins definitely could work his way into that starting lineup. As the season goes on, Stewart, might add something some games, but we might need Mullins other games. It's going to be kind of like a give and take, kind of like we did with the center position last year, in my opinion, between Sampson and Terrace. I just think that you start your experience and you bring Terrace in at the five. That wasn't really much of an issue last year. Um, and then you give it to Stu, who's going into his third year here. Hearing good things about him over the summer, a little bit of improvement possibly. You just want to see these guys kind of take that step, and I think Hurley's going to kind of put Stewart in that position to take that step.
I could see this situation going a lot like the Tyrese Martin, Jordan Hawkins situation when they were kind of battling it out. I mean, could Hawkins have started on that team? Probably, but he came off the bench. I don't know if he had necessarily as much hype as Mullins does right now, but I agree with Matt. I think he's going to give it to Stewart out of the gate. But like we've seen with Dan Hurley, also, it doesn't necessarily matter a whole lot who's in the starting lineup. It matters basically, or more, how you finish. And we've seen games where guys start like Samson Johnson, the Providence game this past year. He played like what 3-4 minutes in the beginning of the second half, never saw the floor again. Terrace Reed saw it for 16 minutes. There's nothing. Obviously, I'm not like trying to, I guess, like speak things into existence, but there's nothing saying that Jalen Stewart isn't the starter, but Braylon Mullins plays 15 out of 20 minutes in the second or first half. Like we said before, anything can happen, but I do agree that he will tend to go with the experience. So I think Stewart's going to get it too. But we'll see a ton of Mullins. We'll see a ton of him. Don't worry.
If there's one thing you don't have to worry about, it's Ryba and Reed being on the court at the same time. That's never happened, and I don't see a world where Reed doesn't start in my I just don't I can't see it. So I think you would have to slide Stu in at that three spot. You need that size, you need that strength, that athleticism. Braylon is a fantastic player. Everything out of preseason and practices has suggested that he's going to be a top player on this team. So I mean, like if you were to kind of put an expectation on it, I would expect him to start maybe around 15 minutes a game, but kind of work his way up towards 20 and maybe a little past 20 later on in the season.
Yeah, I agree with both you guys' points there. I'm truly torn on it though, because we've seen with the five star, Stephon Castle was a starter, Liam McNeely came in as a starter. But at the same time, why does Jalen Stewart come back to UConn for a third year to come off the bench? It's the same argument I'm going to make in a few minutes here about like our rotation. Why would Jaden Ross come back to play the same amount of minutes he did last year, which was pretty much none down the stretch? I feel like he will end up going with the experienced guy, but from that unofficial box score we had from that blue versus white scrimmage, Braylon Mullins had 20 points and his team blew out the other team. So I just feel like he's a elite talent, and it's going to be really hard to not have him in there. But like Andrew said, and I fully agree, it doesn't matter who starts; it matters who finishes. Because I guarantee you, if we have five guys on the floor in a tie game down the stretch, Braylon Mullins is going to be one of those five guys. That's just how talented of a guard he is. I feel like he has a sneaky potential one-on-one candidate if it goes his way this season. I'm not saying I want that because I want our guys here as long as possible, but NBA is cool too. But yeah, I'm really torn on the decision, but if I had a gun to my head, I'd probably say Jalen Stewart is the starter opening night and in those first scrimmages against BC and Michigan State.
And we've seen guys who don't start like have huge roles in games. Like for God's sakes, Joey Calcaterra was the player of the game against Georgetown. All those, not all those, but a couple of years ago, and he never got close to the starting lineup. So I feel like the starting lineup matters, but at the same time, it really doesn't because what's saying that these teams have done their scouting on Braylon Mullins and they don't know what's coming off the bench. All of a sudden, he hits three threes off the bench and the other team's thinking to themselves, what the hell's going on here? So, maybe he'll be a hidden gem. I feel like we've had a couple of those in the past where they come off the bench and kind of take the other team by surprise in a way. So it'll definitely be interesting, but at the same time, as it should be a debate just for kind of the nature of a sports podcast. But in the end, like I don't think it genuinely matters. I think what really matters is that we have both players and that they're both going to contribute.
I think you're exactly right about that. How many times last year did Mahaney start and he'd only play 12 minutes? Or Terrace would start and he'd only play 15 minutes. It really is come and go. Hurley is gonna, find the guy who he thinks is gonna make a bigger impact as the game goes on. You can't determine those things at the beginning of the game. So that's just, one great thing about Dan Hurley. There's so many good things you could say about him, but one of them is that he's not afraid to make a change. He's not afraid to switch things up, and he's always going to put the team out there that he feels has the best chance of winning that game, not kind of just who needs the minutes.
Yeah, and I'm pulling up that box score from that blue-white scrimmage, an unofficial box score with just points from Dave Borges, who was there. The winning team, which was the gray team, I guess white, gray, whatever, they won 73 to 36. And the teams for that, Braylon Mullins, Jaden Ross, Silas Tamari, Jalen Stewart, and Terrace Reed against Ryba, Caravan, Solo Ball, Jacob Furphy, and Jacob Ross. Mullins went for 20 in that game. Reed had 26, Stewart 11, Jaden Ross 9, 6 for Silas. For the other team, Ryba had 12, Caravan 10, Solo Ball had 3, which is interesting. 6 for Furphy and then 2 for Little Ross. Any of those numbers stick out? Because I can tell by some of your guys' facial reactions that's the first you've heard of that. Matt, what do you got?
Yeah, that is the first I heard of that. And Solo Ball having 3 points. I mean, he's a fantastic player. He is streaky, but part of me doesn't think that's just Solo Ball struggling. Part of me thinks that's the defense of, one of the more athletic guards in the country, Braylon Mullins, coming in and playing fantastic defense. Like I said, we have heard a lot of great things about Mullins in the preseason. If he's doing things like that, there's no way you can leave him out of the starting lineup. You can't take that guy out, but there's way more to summer than this one scrimmage. I mean, you learn a lot about your guys, but I mean, one day is one day. You've seen 2 years now, Stu. So, um, definitely encouraging things. I mean, even on the losing side, Rival with 12. I mean, if he puts up 12 a game in the regular season, that'd be fantastic. It's not going to happen, but um, yeah, just like I said, a very, very thought-provoking, very much so. Especially on the younger side of things, the younger guys. I mean, even Ross seemed like he had a good game. So, very, very, I can't think of the word, but it's very looking very good.
Malachi Smith did not play in that scrimmage because he's still rehabbing his injury. So what it sounds like is that Demery, I'm going to go on the more positive side of obviously Ball having 3 points and say that it sounds like Demery's getting it done on both sides of the floor. That's what it sounds like. Because if I had to guess, he was probably guarding Solo. And from what I've seen and heard, he's a really good hard-nosed defender. And it really sounds like he's getting it done on both ends of the floor, which is the positive that I want to take from this.
Yeah, like you guys said, it's the summer scrimmage, doesn't matter. You're missing your backup point guard and a guy who's probably going to play 15 to 20 minutes a game. Like Jacob Ross, maybe he'll be good at some point. He's not going to see rotation minutes for the Huskies this season. If he does, either he's really good or something went really, really south for Dan Hurley and his bunch. Let's see. Is there anything else that I missed that you guys want to touch on here in our first episode back? I'm trying to see if
I
there's any
remember
major.
you mentioned Furphy in the game against the US.
Yes, that's right. Furphy and Eric Ryba both played. I don't know what formal world tournament it was. Furphy, of course, for Australia and Ryba for Germany. Furphy was cooking all tournament. He had a great game against USA. He's a guy who I feel like is an ultimate wild card coming in because he's not really ranked that high, but he's also foreign, so you don't expect him to have that high of a ranking coming in. But I feel like everything I've seen about him is that he's an ultimate weapon. I've seen people compare him to like a Cam Spencer and his like attitude in a way, someone that just puts it all on the floor for his team. So that's something I'd really love, especially out of a freshman coming in. He's gonna make things really interesting because I feel like this time last year, not this time last year, when we did our last episode, I meant to say. I feel like Furphy was a guy who probably wasn't even we weren't thinking of him as someone who would play significant minutes. I feel like he's another guy. I'm glad I'm not Dan Hurley and Kamani Young and the staff trying to figure out who plays how many minutes because always going to be 8 or 9 really talented players and 3 or 4 of them have to sit on the bench. But yeah, Furphy really impressive in that international play. Ryba too as well.
And when we kind of got Furphy, there was a few question marks. We weren't exactly sure what he was going to be, like you said, but I mean, Hurley kind of went after him. If you think back to that time, I don't remember the exact order in which they all came in, but it was like Mullins, it was Ryba, um, and then it was Furphy, and he was kind of like expected to maybe not play that many minutes, but then you signed like four other guys, whether it be in the portal or at the end of the transfer kind of window here. To fill those roles. So then you're just like, what was the hurry with Furphy? And I just honestly think that Furphy is super talented. I think he, knows the game of basketball maybe better than anybody else on this team right now. He's been playing professionally for a while, not quite like Luka did, but something sort of like that. He's been playing pro since he was, little. So I mean, Hurley. I think definitely sees a little bit of something in Furphy. Definitely someone who could come in and contribute. Like you said, he played very good all summer. I'd love to see him come in and, put it to practice. Just a matter of time, honestly. I feel like with him, I feel like he's bound to, make a sizable impact on the team.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up some of his stats. Furphy averaged 17 points per game in that tournament. He had 24 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists in a game. I'm not sure if that was the US game or not, because I'm sometimes looking through his tagged Instagram posts and seeing what we got here. He had 19 points in another game against the Dominican Republic, I believe. So he's a guy who I feel like my mental image of him coming in was someone who was not a pass first player, but not someone who can create his own shot, someone who's putting on the floor. Really just a good role player with a good IQ, but clearly he's someone who could put the ball in the hoop. So I'm going to really intrigued to see where he fits in with this year's team. Ryba, of course, he didn't have as crazy numbers, but still very solid numbers for a 19, 18, 20, however old Eric Ryba is in international play. But yeah, besides that, I think we're just about good here. Episode 135, unless I'm missing something.
Just one thing. That's congratulations to Chris Mastrangelo
Yes.
for accepting a job as, I believe, the director of basketball operations at St. Peter's after 7+ years in the program. So it definitely sucks to lose him, but it's great for him moving on up on the food chain of college basketball coaches, I guess.
Yeah, it's always sucks to lose someone in the program like that, but obviously you move up, that's a good thing. So happy for Chris. I'm trying to find the official tweet from John Rothstein here as we kind of conclude. Here it is. Mistrand, I'm only reading the second paragraph because that's the juicy stuff. And we're gonna end with this quote. We're not gonna say anything else after. So thank you guys for watching episode 135. We'll get back into it more often as we get closer to the season, especially with these exhibition games coming up. We're gonna do a bunch of season previews for players and stuff like that. But to end episode 135, Mistrangelo was oh, I messed it up. Redo that. Mistrangelo was mentored by the venerable Paul Wetterman, who continues to cement his place as a molder of young professionals.